Howdy, and welcome back to Barebow Basics. In today's segment, we're going to talk about a question that gets asked an awful lot by beginners just starting out. And that's, how do I choose my first barebow riser? With so many models on the market, you would think there would be a single best choice. But if we're totally honest with ourselves, the truth is there's many suitable choices, so there's no right answer to that question. There are, however, guidelines. And those guidelines reference features on risers across the different manufacturing lines that are critical to success in competitive barebow archery. We're going to go over these features from a variety of risers I've gathered together as examples. And this will help illustrate which important features you should be looking for in your first riser that will help ensure that your bow can be set up for consistency, upgradability, and forgiveness as you progress. First, let's talk about commonalities, features that every ILF riser is going to have. They're all going to have some kind of grip, some kind of Lin Pocket with a tiller bolt and a dovetail, an arrow shelf with plunger installation hole, and some kind of stabilizer bushing. Where things start to diverge is how each manufacturer adds additional features beyond these basic features. So we'll cover them one at a time, and we'll go into a little bit of detail as to how important or not so important they are for beginners. So something you'll notice is all these risers have an interchangeable grip. An interchangeable grip is important because you want to be able to customize the fit of the grip to your hand. Each archer's hand is a different shape and size. And actually, your hand can change over time based on muscle growth and muscle tone. So it's very important that you can suit the grip to your hand. What you want to do is make sure you get a riser that is supported by an aftermarket grip manufacturer, like Jaeger Archery or Arcor. Then you'll be able to customize and get exactly the grip that you want in such a way that it fits your hand perfect. And on those cases where it doesn't, you can actually modify the grip without fear of damaging the riser. And if it doesn't work for you, you just get another grip and try again. Next, let's focus on the riser window area. The riser window area is where you look through during sighting. You want to make sure there's no obstructions or protrusions that could be misconstrued as a sighting device per World Archery rules. I always recommend a riser that has 2 threaded and tapped holes as opposed to just 1. This allows for a more stable and secure installation of your arrow rest and plunger. Riser Lin Pocket design has evolved quite a bit over the last few years. Even still, I would recommend beginners focus on 3 things: your tiller bolt, your dovetail, and your lateral limb adjustment. The industry standard has pretty much gone to using set screws to push the dovetail back and forth for lateral limb adjustment. There are older designs, like this Core Sparks, which is a Chinese clone, which uses threaded bolts, or even this Hoyt Epic, which is my current riser, that uses a shim system. And while those systems do work, they're a bit more complex and a little bit fiddly, which makes for harder adjustments if you want to make changes on the fly. So stick to a riser that has lateral limb adjustment set screws to move the dovetail. Lastly, let's talk about weight. We add weight to a barebow riser in order to increase its mass for additional stability at full draw. We do have to be mindful how much weight we add though, because we still have to pass through the World Archery inspection ring. And as you can see, it doesn't leave a lot of room for oversized weights. To deal with this, many manufacturers have become very creative in their design and engineering, adding internal pockets where weights can be inserted or clamped on, like on this Gilo G1 or on this Gilo GT. Hoyt has a cool version in their integrated barebow weight that clamps on from both sides. Now, I don't generally ever recommend this type of weight for a beginner because it couples you to that riser and is not interchangeable. Additionally, it adds too much mass to the bow, which is a detriment when you're shooting because your form will suffer. Your bow side arm isn't ready to handle that level of weight and it ends up dropping during the shot execution. Instead, I recommend something simple, like a steel cylinder. This is an 11-ounce Yost archery cylinder, and it bolts directly to the stabilizer bushing hole. Now you'll see on all of these risers, there's a steel insert for the stabilizer bushing hole, and this is what you should look for as it's preferred. There are some risers out there that have a drilled hole in the aluminum that's tapped, and you don't really want to put a steel bolt directly into an aluminum hole because it won't be as durable of a connection. By going with a simple configuration like this, you can upgrade your riser or upgrade your weight as your needs change and you progress through your archery journey. So you're probably wondering, what about those higher end risers? Why do they cost so much, and what do I get if I purchase something like that? And the simple answer is engineering. Advanced engineering goes into the design and machining of those risers, and they create features like the convenience of insertable weights or clamp-on weights, or, in the case of the Gilo GT, an articulating Lin Pocket that allows an increased range of movement. That allows you to draw more power out of your limbs if necessary during tuning. Or Hoyt's limb pad angle system, which allows you to shift the contact point of where the limb base rests in the limb pocket. This changes how the limb feels during and throughout the shot. Now these are cool features, but honestly, they're not really necessary for a beginner. A beginner has a million things going through their mind when they're taking the shot, so it's rare that they're actually going to notice exactly how their equipment feels during the shot execution. When you progress to a point where you're an intermediate and things are starting to happen automatically, you'll start to pay attention to how the equipment feels during the shot as well. At that stage is when I usually recommend an upgrade, because you're starting to find your personal preference as to how you want your equipment to feel during and throughout the shot. This helps your feedback loop to let you know whether or not your shot went off well, or if you had an error in form or execution during the shot. If you're still undecided at this point, I can offer a few additional thoughts to consider, but keep in mind they're very subjective and they're specific to each archer. First is the cost, because every archer has their own personal budget, so only they can decide what they would consider affordable versus what they would consider pricey for them. Next is the riser weight, because every archer is built physically different, and some can handle more weight than others. With that said, I still generally always recommend a bare riser weight of 2.5 pounds or less, because every beginner can manage that well. Next is the aesthetic, because let's face it, if you don't love the way your bow looks, you won't shoot it as much, and if you don't practice enough, you won't become proficient and gain confidence. And last is something that isn't talked about much, but is still important, and that's the resale value. At some point, you may decide you don't want to shoot barebow anymore, and you don't want to transition to Olympic recurve. Or the opposite, you love barebow and you want to dive even deeper, so you purchase a higher end riser full of features. In either case, you may decide you want to sell that first riser. And I can tell you from experience that taking a percentage hit loss on the used market, selling a lower price riser, is always a lot less painful than doing it with a $500 or $600 riser. Now, with all that said, I still suggest everyone focus on the basics we've talked about. An interchangeable grip with aftermarket support so you can suit the grip to your hand. A Lin Pocket with a dovetail that's adjusted by set screws for smooth and easy correction of a non-straight limb during setup. 2 installation holes in the arrow shelf for semi-independent installation of the plunger and the arrow rest. This aids greatly in tuning, as you'll see later on. And a steel insert for the stabilizer bushing mount, because you will be installing and removing various forward balancing weights throughout the course of your barebow journey. With everything we've discussed, I trust that you'll be able to choose the right riser for you out of the many available options on the market. And if you get stuck, just remember to go with your gut, because in the end, it is personal preference. Now, this riser here is the Forge Plus by SF Archery. WNS rebranded it as the Motive FX a little while back. Because I have this on loan from a great friend for the rest of the summer, I've decided to use this as our test bed for all of our hands-on demonstrations in future video segments. If you haven't subscribed already, I suggest that you do. That way, you'll get to see how I set up, tune, and shoot this riser for fun as a competitive barebow setup. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to sharing more information with you in our next segment.